NBC's studio smelled of fresh paint and panic. The chandeliers, usually dimmed to a tasteful twilight, were cranked to interrogation white, the better to catch sweat. JD Vance adjusted the lapel mic the way a surgeon tests a scalpel, then simply waited while Hillary Clinton finished her opening flourish about experience, steadiness, and the soul of the nation. When the moderator threw to Vance, the vice president did not speak. He reached into the interior pocket of his jacket, withdrew a burgundy folder whose clasp snapped open like a dislocated jaw, and laid 8 sheets of paper on the glass table. Only then did he lean toward the former secretary and deliver the 8 words that would replace the preamble of her legacy. "Madam Secretary, tonight your paper trail catches fire." 1. Benghazi, the YouTube alibi. Vance tapped page 1. The overhead camera zoomed. An email time-stamped 9/11/12, 11:47 p.m. flashed across the nation's screens. From hddr2@clintonemail.com to Diane Reynolds at yahoo.com, Chelsea Clinton's alias. Subject: "I'm fine, love you." Body: 2 officers dead. Al-Qaeda-like group. Not a film. He let the silence ferment, then read aloud the next line she wrote to Egypt's prime minister 12 hours later. "We know the attack had nothing to do with the video." Cut to raw footage from Andrews Air Force Base. Hillary, black suit, sunglasses like polished shields, promising Tyrone Woods' father that the filmmaker would be jailed. Vance never raised his voice. He simply aligned the sentences like dominoes and tapped the first. "You told the truth to your daughter, the truth to a foreign minister, and a lie to a grieving father on a tarmac. Which of those 3 deserved the script?" 2. The server, bleach, hammers, and lost devices. Sheet 2 slid forward. A subpoena dated 3/4/15 glared beside an invoice from Bleach, bit dated 3/5/15. 33,000 emails evaporated between dinner and breakfast. Vance produced a photograph. 13 blackberries piled like discarded bones, each cracked by a hammer whose head bore the initials HRC. "Marines go to Leavenworth for deleting 1 classified slide," he said. "You deleted an archive, then celebrated with confetti on Ellen. That is not a double standard. That is a different universe." 3. The Foundation, uranium, Ericsson, Algeria, and the 90% collapse. Page 3 unfolded into a flowchart. Rosatom, $145 million to Clinton Foundation, state debt approval of Uranium 1. Below it, Ericsson, $750,000 speaking fee for bill, state waiver for tech sales to Iran. Algeria, $500,000, favorable human rights report. Vance let the camera linger on the last line. Donations down 90% after election night 2016. "Charities don't hemorrhage when power disappears," he observed. "Scams do." 4. Libya. We came, we saw, he died, and open-air slave markets. He rolled clip 4. Hillary laughing with CBS, 2011. "We came, we saw, he died," she chirped, then clapped like a child at a birthday piñata. Smash cut to 2017 CNN footage. Sub-Saharan Africans sold for $400 outside Tripoli. Vance muted the sound, let the auctioneer's gesture hang in American living rooms. Comedy to carnage in 6 years. That is not foreign policy. It is vandalism with a jet fleet. 5. Russia. Reset. Skolkovo and the Steel Mirror, Sheet 5. A red reset button prop beside a Rosatom contract, both signed the same week. $2.5 million in Clinton Foundation cash from Russian oligarchs, while Skolkovo received U.S. tech export clearances. Below that, invoices from Perkins Coie, Steele Dossier, FBI FISA warrants. Projection, Vance said softly, is the privilege of the guilty. Accuse your opponent of the treason you monetized first. 6. The rigged primary, DNC in chains, email chains from 2015 lit the screen. HRC would like the debate on a Tuesday. Fewer viewers. CNN will oblige. Donna Brazil's book excerpt floated beside. The Victory Fund gave Clinton control of the party before the voters spoke. Vance looked straight at the camera. She rigged her own primary, then called democracy under attack when the Electoral College disagreed with her. 7. The women she silenced, bimbo eruptions. He did not shout. He simply listed Paula, Juanita, Kathleen, Monica, each name appearing beside a 1990s memo bearing Hillary's handwriting, destroy, trailer trash. Loony, feminism, Vance concluded, does not come with a mute button for other women. 8. The deplorables and the states. She ignored final slide. Electoral map, 2016. Wisconsin, gray. Michigan, gray. Pennsylvania, gray. Below them, a calendar showing 37 days since Hillary set foot in Wisconsin. Beside that, her West Coast fundraiser schedule. 5 stops, $50 million, gold-rimmed China. You cannot call half the country irredeemable and then wonder why they did not queue up to be redeemed by you. The aftermath? Paper burns, legacy ashes. Vance closed the folder. No applause. Only the low hum of studio lights and the soft click of Clinton's jaw as she tried, twice, to form words. Within an hour, #Burgundy folder trended above #Oscars. By dawn, the Clinton Foundation Board convened an emergency session, teleconference, cameras off, and voted to dissolve, effective immediately. The IRS Criminal Division reopened its dormant file. The Benghazi Committee's archived hard drives were pulled from storage and flown to Quantico under Marine escort. Crowdsourcing sites crashed as millions donated $1 each to fund private FOIA lawsuits. At 11:47 p.m., exactly 25 years after she hit send to Chelsea, a federal judge unsealed a search warrant for the Chappaqua server room. NBC cut to commercial. When they returned, Hillary's chair was empty, microphone swinging like a broken metronome. Vance remained seated, hands folded, staring at the spot where the most prolific political brand of a generation had just been reduced to 8 sheets of paper, and the silence that follows truth when the camera stops pretending. The silence did not end. It metastasized. Control room headsets clattered to the floor as producers realized the feed was still live and the vice president had not moved. Vance lifted only his index finger, an afterthought of a gesture, and the director, obeying instinct older than ratings, held the shot. For 17 uninterrupted seconds, the country watched a close-up of Hillary's empty leather chair, microphone cable swinging in a perfect arc, its windscreen catching the Klieg lights like a pendulum counting down the last heartbeats of a dynasty. Then, without cue, Vance spoke again, softer than before, the way a librarian informs you the book you requested has been burned, but its ashes are available for inspection. She left before the rebuttal, he said. That is the first honest thing she has done tonight. 9. The corridor. Chase, cameras off, microphones hot. What happened next never hit the broadcast feed. NBC cut to a commercial about laundry pods, but the streaming back end, accidentally left open to European servers, captured everything. Clinton, heels clicking like castanets, bolted down the marble hallway toward the freight elevator. Secret Service detail flanking, one agent barking, "Clear the path!" A junior NBC page, 22, Iraq vet on internship, stepped sideways, extended a trembling iPhone, and asked the only question that mattered. "Ma'am, what did you delete tonight?" Hillary stopped, turned, sunglasses now fogged, and uttered 3 syllables the world had never heard from her lips. "Everything. I deleted everything." The audio clipped as the agent smacked the phone to the floor, but the clip was already in the cloud. Hashtag everything before the elevator doors sealed. 10. The digital bonfire. Servers, backups, and bleach bit. Within 90 minutes, Reddit users noticed the Clinton Foundation website returning a 404 shaped like a tomato. By midnight, AWS logs showed 42 terabytes of archived emails purged across 12 regions, an erasure so complete that even metadata ghosts were overwritten with random Shakespeare sonnets. Cyber Command traced the command and control IP to a satellite uplink parked above the Chappaqua compound, transmission initiated at 2347 the exact second the elevator doors closed on NBC's soundstage. Vance, informed in real time, simply nodded and whispered to an aide, "Guilty people bleach twice." The aide recorded the line, accidentally on purpose, and by dawn it was ringtoned across every swing state phone. Andrei Levin, Jason News. The collapse of the industrial lie machine. At 02:14 a.m., the Washington Post's newsroom Slack lit up. Editors screaming that every archived Clinton article from 1992 forward displayed a 403 error. The New York Times internal CMS coughed up a blank page where 4,327 Clinton-related pieces had lived. Even BuzzFeed's cat listicle cache was gutted, an act of cultural arson so total that conspiracy theorists accused Vance of deploying an AI truth worm, though no such program was ever confirmed. The only Clinton story left standing was a 1979 profile from the Yale student newspaper, Pre-Power, Pre-Money, Pre-Bill, headlined, "Hillary Rodham, Children's Rights Are Human Rights." Netizens screen captured it, printed it on hemp paper, and mailed copies to the bus Pelosi now drove, an inadvertent epitaph forwarded by the very algorithm she once paid to suppress. 12. The legal avalanche. From subpoena to steal. At 06:00 sharp, Attorney General Pam Bondi, sworn in 3 weeks earlier, opened her government-issued safe, withdrew a sealed indictment drafted months prior by Special Counsel Kash Patel, and signed page 1 while the ink was still warm. Charges, 18 U.S.C. 793. Gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information, 234 counts, 18 U.S.C. Farvar 1 Finders 19. Destruction of records, 33,000 counts, 18 U.S.C. Seberfer 1956. Laundering of monetary instruments, Foundation, Uranium 1, 18 U.S.C. Chapter 111. Accessory, after the fact, to murder, Benghazi 4. No perp walk, no press conference, only a Gulf Stream lifting off from Manassas. Wheels up at 06:47. Destination, Chappaqua. The pilot filed flight plan, Tomato 1. Air traffic control cleared it straight in. 13. The perimeter. Birds, dogs, and drones. Agents found the estate gates ajar, intercom cracked, glass crunching underfoot like thin ice. Inside the main house, a single light bulb glowing above the kitchen island, beneath it a hammer, head scarred, handle taped, resting atop a fresh dent in granite. Beside it, a note handwritten on Clinton letterhead. "I have taught the nation to delete. Now the nation will teach me to remember." No signature, no body. Bloodhounds tracked a scent trail to the edge of the woods, then lost it where the forest floor turned to mulch so rich with earthworms it resembled a living carpet. 47.9 compost, lab tested later. Mortgage lifter ancestry confirmed. Helicopters circled. Infrared picked up only a heat bloom shaped like a five-pointed star, fading as dew fell. 14. The vanishing point. Seed wins argument. By noon, the story no longer belonged to networks. It belonged to the wind. School children in Toledo taped tomato seeds to construction paper airplanes and launched them over fences. Farmers in Nebraska drove combines in slow circles spelling 47-9 across stubbled fields visible from orbit. A Syrian refugee in Lesbos planted one seed in the toe of a child's lost sneaker, set it adrift with a note. Grow where cameras cannot. The sneaker washed up in Calabria 3 weeks later, vine already flowering through the lace holes. No anchor reported it. The image traveled anyway, carried by thumbs that had never read a headline, but knew the taste of hope. 15. The epilogue, Vice President, empty chair, full soil. That evening, back in the NBC studio, producers asked Vance if he wanted a rebuttal segment. Length flexible, graphics unlimited. He declined. He walked alone to the freight elevator, pressed B for basement, exited into an alley that smelled of wet cardboard and diesel. A homeless vet, face sun-scabbed, eyes clear, offered him a slice of tomato on a cracked plastic lid. Vance ate it, seeds and all, then handed the vet the burgundy folder. "Plant this," he said. "Evidence rots. Fiber survives." The man planted it the next morning in a median strip on the 405, watered it with coffee, and by summer the folder had dissolved into pulp while the vines climbed the metal fence like green fireworks. Commuters slowed, rolled down windows, asked what variety. "Truth," the vet answered, "grows best in shit." And somewhere tonight, maybe a prison bus rolling east, maybe a star system we will never reach, maybe the dark space between your heartbeat and the next, the seed keeps moving, keeps splitting, keeps teaching the only lesson power never managed to embargo. Grow or die. The vine on the 405 median flowered first. Tiny yellow stars winking at 6 lanes of brake-light constellations. By August, the fruit hung so low that Tesla mirrors clipped them at 70 miles an hour. Scarlet globes exploding across windshields like wet confessions. Traffic cams caught the splatter, pixel-red streaks that went viral under the hashtag #TomatoTarmac. Caltrans crews arrived with hedge trimmers, then hesitated. The lane closures required to hack the vines would cost more votes than letting them fruit. So the vines kept climbing, into exit signs, over CCTV poles, until one night a SIG alert read, "Caution, fresh produce ahead." Los Angeles learned to commute through a salad. 16. The fruit stand insurgency, $0 $100 a pound. On the first Friday of harvest, the vet, his name is Marcus, 34, 2 tours, 1 Purple Heart, set up a card table in the breakdown lane. Handwritten sign, free, no permit, no scale, no cash box. CHP cruisers slowed, lights flashing, then drove off, because every officer had eaten a slice handed through the window by a stranger in traffic. By noon, the table was empty. By dusk, Marcus had 400 new followers on an app that doesn't exist in app stores. Just an SMS tree that pulses one word when fruit is ripe. Come. The tree grows faster than any algorithm. Within a week, it has nodes in 14 cities, all operating on the same $0 model. Grocery chains file SEC complaints, dumping perishable goods below cost. The SEC replies, price is not cost. Cost is what you burn when truth rots. Stock in the largest West Coast supermarket chain falls 12% in a day. An earnings call devolves into analysts asking how to monetize generosity. The CEO has no answer. The line goes dead. 17. The DNA trace. Seed to server. A UC Davis plant geneticist, bored and tenured, sequences a random mortgage lifter from the 405 vine. The genome contains a 47-9 marker, expected, but also a 200 base pair insertion that does not exist in any known cultivar. When translated from base pairs to ASCII, it reads 200 names, Arlington, Section 60. The professor drops his coffee mug, emails the file to every peer review list he knows. Within 48 hours, labs in 17 countries confirm the same insertion in fruit they received from tourists who visited California and pocketed a souvenir slice. The tomato has become a hard drive, photosynthetic memory. Each fruit a tiny SSD storing the roll call of the dead. No one claims credit. No algorithm can delete chlorophyll. The Republic has learned to back up its grief in cellulose. The global ripple. Walls rot. Vines climb. In Budapest, a student straps pots of mortgage lifters to the Hungarian parliament fence. By harvest, the iron is invisible under leaves. In Tehran, a widow plants seeds inside spent tear gas canisters. Vines emerge through the nozzle like green tongues licking the gas that failed to silence. In Cape Town, township kids weave vines through barbed wire still electrified from apartheid days. Fruit hangs safely outside the voltage, cooling in the ocean breeze. Each cluster carries the 200-name insertion. Each bite downloads the same list into a new bloodstream. The tomato becomes the most widely distributed open-source hardware in history. More ubiquitous than iPhones, more copied than TikTok dances, and impossible to recall because it reproduces by appetite. 19. The Return. Chappaqua, October, Frost Marcus. The vet hitches west, rides blind in a lettuce truck that smells of compost and diesel. He carries one envelope, 31G, the same weight Hillary once carried out of Leavenworth. At the edge of the Chappaqua woods, he finds the spot where hounds lost her scent. The earth is soft, worm-casted, still shaped like a 5-pointed star. He plants upside down, mimicking her final gesture, then waits. First frost comes early. The vine struggles, leaves purple, stems split. On the night the temperature hits 28 degf, Marcus stays, wrapped in a mylar blanket, burning coffee grounds for warmth. At dawn, the plant is dead above ground, but the fruit has self-seeded, tiny green marbles hidden in the freeze. He covers them with the mylar, whispers, "Sleep, then testify," and walks back to the highway. Behind him, the forest floor pulses, slow as a federal indictment, sure as spring. 20. The Spring Trial. Seed versus Senate. Year 14 opens with the Senate impeached, not a person, the institution itself. The charge: failure to photosynthesize. The trial is held on the National Mall. Every senator must germinate 5 seeds in 5 days using only their own speeches as fertilizer. Most oratory proves sterile. Only those who admit ignorance witness cotyledons. The gavel is a mortgage lifter core, dried and varnished. When the presiding officer pronounces sentence, the Senate is adjourned until its words can feed something other than ego. The handle splits and seeds spill across the dais like marbles from a child's pocket. Pages sweep them into envelopes addressed to every state capital. No roll call vote is taken. The yeas and nays are counted in sprouts received by July 4th. The Republic dissolves one chamber and regrows it as a greenhouse, transparent, humid, and open to the sky. 21. The final metric. GDP becomes GSP, gross seed product. The Commerce Department retires GDP. New calculation. Total weight of heirloom seed saved, dried, and replanted on American soil. First quarter reading, 47,900 metric tons, up 200% from the previous fiscal year. Wall Street traders, what's left of them, learn to quote cotyledon futures. The Chicago Board of Trade lists mortgage lifter Nov at $0 per bushel. Volume infinite. Analysts scream on cable about deflation. Viewers mute and head outside to mulch. The Federal Reserve Chair, confronted by Congress, holds up one red globe and says, "This is the only backing our currency now requires." Then she eats it, seeds and all, on live television. No one asks for an interest rate hike again. 22. The epilogue. One seed, one vote, one grave. Marcus returns to Arlington Section 60, carrying a single ripe tomato the size of a child's heart. He kneels, slices it horizontally, reveals the 5-pointed star still imprinted with the 200 names in ASCII veins. He presses the cut face into the grass above the newest grave, an Air Force drone pilot lost when coordinates leaked in 2012. Juice seeps into soil, ants arrive. The star dissolves, but the names remain, now encoded in ant pheromones that will circle the globe at ground level for centuries. Marcus stands, turns, and for the first time in 14 years speaks to a camera that isn't there. We don't need monuments. We need fruit that remembers. Then he walks away barefoot, leaving the skin and seeds to merge with the roots of the grass that blankets the dead, the living, and the republic that almost died of forgetting. And somewhere tonight, maybe a ballot you haven't cast yet, maybe a garden you haven't weeded, maybe the silence between your next heartbeat and the one after that. The seed keeps speaking, keeps splitting, keeps teaching the only civics lesson that ever outlived empire. Grow or die. The grass drank the juice, and the lesson kept tunneling. Through root hair, through the fine fungal lace that stitches every quiet grave to every loud kitchen. 23. The Mycelium Census, 2040. By presidential order, Executive Order 47-9, signed with a tomato-stained thumb, the Census Bureau stops counting people. It counts mycorrhizal miles, how far a single fungal cell can travel from a grave at Arlington to a windowsill in Jakarta, carrying in its cytoplasm the ASCII of 200 names. The first official reading, 2.17 million miles, longer than every highway built by Eisenhower, longer than every wall ever mortared by fear. Cartographers print new atlases, roads in red, fungal highways in green. Children learn to read maps that begin in a cemetery and end on a dinner plate, understanding finally that geography is just the story of who fed whom and who remembered. 24. The antitrust suit. People. Fabias. Power, the Department of Justice files its last antitrust case, not against a company, against the concept of hierarchy itself. Evidence: one mortgage lifter vine planted in a federal courthouse plaza that climbed the facade and strangled the gilded eagle above the entrance. The vine's brief: no entity may grow taller than the food it provides. The court, meeting under the vine's shade, rules 9-0 in favor of the plant. The eagle is melted down into 200 trowels, each engraved with a name from Section 60, then distributed to kindergartners who use them to plant the first seed of first grade. No appeal is filed. The eagle does not rise again. 25. The language shift. Nouns. Rot verbs root. Dictionaries delete the word president. Replacement verb to tomato, trans, to feed strangers before they become enemies. Conjugation. I tomato, you tomato, we have tomaten. Example. We tomaten the invaders, and they left with seed in their pockets instead of blood on their boots. Synonyms. Cultivate, apologize, remember. Antonyms. Delete, exploit, forget. The Oxford entry includes a sound file, the soft thud of a ripe fruit falling into a child's open palm, an onomatopoeia for peace. 26. The last debate. Silence, view, noise. The Commission on Presidential Debates schedules one final event. Location. A Nebraska soybean field after harvest. Stubble gold against November sky. Format. Candidates must sit cross-legged in dirt for 90 minutes without speaking. Whoever attracts the most pollinators wins. One candidate hums, one candidate weeps, one candidate simply breathes. Bees land on all three, but they stay longest on the one whose pulse slows to match the Earth's 7.83 hertz hum. That person becomes the last head of state ever elected. Their inauguration is a whisper. I will grow quiet enough to hear you hungry. The oath ends when a butterfly lands on their lip. The Republic accepts the verdict and goes home. Chapter 27. The currency collapse. Photosynthesis as reserve. The Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City burns its last pallet of $100 bills in a boiler that powers a seed-drying oven. Smoke smells like cotton and cocaine and campaign promises. The ash is mixed into potting soil and distributed to public school gardens. Exchange rate announced, 1 tomato equals 1 tomato. Inflation is impossible, so is deflation. The only remaining interest is what grows between sunrise and sunset. Wall Street, now a greenhouse district, lists its final stock, a single share of GROW that trades hands every second but never changes value. Ownership is recorded by the number of seeds you can hold in your closed fist without lying. Chapter 28. The travel ban. Borders compost. Every national border is seeded shoulder to shoulder with mortgage lifters for 1,000 miles inland and outward. Customs officers replaced by horticulturists who ask only 2 questions. 1. Did you bring food to share? 2. Did you bring hunger to plant? If both answers are yes, you pass. If either is no, you wait until the season teaches you. Passports are abolished. Identification is performed by tasting a leaf and describing what mineral you taste. Iron, magnesium, forgiveness. The first person to fail is a former president who still speaks in polling data. He is held in a greenhouse until he can pronounce the word enough without asking for a bigger share. He learns by spring. The vines let him leave, but the taste of magnesium stays on his tongue for life. 29. The archive apocalypse. Paper returns to Earth. The National Archives schedules a controlled burn. Every document that classified a human being as expendable. The fire is lit at dawn on the mall. The fuel is the original burgundy folder, now empty, now kindling. Librarians stand in a circle, reading aloud the 200 names as pages curl into ash. Wind lifts the carbon and carries it across the Capitol dome, across the river, across Section 60, where it settles into the ant colony that now guards the tomato star. The ants incorporate carbon into their exoskeletons. For one generation, they shine obsidian under moonlight, a living microfilm that any child can read by flashlight and wonder. 30. The last measurement, weight of a republic. On the 14th anniversary of the broadcast, a girl named Arlington, first of her name, weighs the Republic. She places one mortgage lifter on a balance scale opposite a gold bar salvaged from a vault, emptied by forgiveness. The tomato outweighs the gold by 0.3 grams. She records the number in a ledger inked with beet juice, closes the book, and eats the evidence. The gold is melted into a single ring, slipped onto the ring finger of the vet named Marcus, who has never worn jewelry, but accepts this one because it is warm from furnace and because it will never again buy a vote. They marry barefoot. The ceremony is a whisper. I give you my hunger. I give you my enough. The guests, ants, bees, mycelium, and 200 names traveling in pheromone code applaud by pollination. No one photographs it. The memory is stored in cellulose and in the slow pulse of Earth that keeps perfect time without a clock. And somewhere tonight, maybe in your chest between the heartbeat you notice and the one you don't, maybe in the soil you still call foreign, maybe in the starlight that left Proxima before you learned to lie, the seed keeps finishing the only sentence that ever needed saying, grow or die. It does not ask your permission. It simply splits, sends root, and begins again. The quiet revolution that ends every empire and starts every dinner. Grow. The root kept creeping, and the Republic learned to measure centuries in cotyledons, in pheromone miles, in the slow accretion of starlight into chloroplasts, until history itself became a single, uninterrupted photosynthetic breath. The Deep Time Library, 212,000 seasons. Under the ant-obsidian strata, earthworms archive castings layer by layer, each coil a microfiche of carbon, nitrogen, sorrow, joy. A century passes. The castings compress into a new rock. Call it Lycopersicum shale, whose laminations glow faintly under UV light, spelling the 200 names in phosphorus ink. Geologists of the 23rd century, drilling ice cores in what was once Arlington, extract a perfect cylinder, 47 millimeters of shale, zeros 212,000 growing seasons. They read the names by fluorescence, pronounce them aloud, and the sound vibrates a glacier until it calves a berg shaped like a five-pointed star. The berg drifts south, melts in equatorial currents, releases the phosphorus, feeds an algal bloom, feeds an anchovy, feeds a child who will plant the next mortgage lifter on Martian regolith. Proof that memory, once encoded in living tissue, can travel from grave to glacier to bloodstream to space, without ever asking a bureaucracy for a visa. 2. The Martian greenhouse, red planet, red fruit. The child, named Arlington the 17th, rides a shuttle paid for by the last gold bar, now melted into heat shield plating. She carries one envelope, 0.3 grams, the exact weight by which tomato once outweighed empire. Martian soil is perchlorate poison. She washes it with her own urine, cycles it through algae tanks, through charcoal made from the last copy of The Art of the Deal, through prayer whispered at 0.388 g of, just enough gravity to keep tears from floating away. She plants upside down, not as superstition but as reminder. On Mars, roots must reach toward the sky they once fled. The first fruit ripples under ultraviolet sun. When sliced, the star inside glows faintly. Phosphorus activated by cosmic radiation, names now written in light instead of ASCII. She eats half, saves half, seals the seeds in a capsule labeled Origin, Earth, 47-9, Section 60, Arlington National Cemetery, a parking lot once called Freedom. Then she opens the airlock, releases the capsule into Martian orbit, and watches it glint like a ruby against the black. A new constellation that orbits the planet every 47 minutes, 9 seconds. 33. The Interplanetary Treaty, Phobos Accords, year 2289. The capsule's orbit decays slowly. Centuries grind it to dust, but each particle still carries the 200 names, now etched in isotopic scars. When Phobos finally fractures under tidal stress, the dust embeds in meteoroids that spray across the inner solar system. One shard, grain of sand small, pierces the hull of an ice miner near Ceres. The crew, descendants of the dust cabinet, recognize the isotopic signature, cease hostilities with a rival consortium, and draft the Phobos Accords. Article 1. No human shall be classified as resource. Article 2. All disputes settled by shared harvest. The side that feeds the other wins. Article 3. Memory outweighs mineral. Anyone who forgets must plant until they remember. The treaty is signed in vacuum, ink replaced by chlorophyll fingerprints pressed against titanium. It holds for 1,000 years, until the sun itself learns to photosynthesize. Chapter 34. The solar photosphere, 5 billion years later. The sun expands, red and hungry. Earth's oceans boil. Arlington's graves melt into glass. The mortgage lifter genome, now spliced into extremophyte lichen, survives on basaltic shards that once were monuments. The lichen climbs the sun's coronal loops, riding magnetic fields like vines once climbed tank turrets. Inside the photosphere, proton-proton chains mimic the old Calvin cycle. The 200 names are encoded in neutrino pulses that escape the star entirely, traveling at light speed into the cosmic void, a broadcast no firewall can breach, no empire redact. Civilizations in distant galaxies detect the pattern, decode it, and understand without translation. We fed strangers. We fed them first. We fed them even when we were the meal. 35. The heat-death reversal. Entropy eaten. The universe cools, expands, dims. Stars gutter. Black holes evaporate. Entropy reaches its slow triumph. But the names, those 200 pulses, keep traveling, keep arriving, keep landing on the event horizon of the last black hole where time itself frays. There, gravity so extreme that even memory should die. The pulses braid into a helix, fold back on themselves, and, because information is also energy, ignite a spark. The spark is green. The spark splits. The spark becomes a root that drinks space-time, becomes a vine that climbs entropy, becomes a fruit that ripens in the final second and drops, not falls, ripens, into the vacuum that was once everything. The fruit bursts. Its seeds are new universes, each one beginning with the same instruction written in the language that predates quarks. Grow or die. 36. The new Big Bang. Seed as singularity. Each seed explodes outward, not with heat, but with hunger. A hunger to feed, to remember, to plant strangers before they become enemies. In one nascent cosmos, the first stars are red giants that taste like tomato. The first planets are loamy spheres orbiting suns that photosynthesize. The first life forms are children who learn to speak by tasting mineral, by naming hunger, by whispering the 200 names into soil until soil answers with fruit. And somewhere in that fresh sky, maybe above a ridge that will one day be called Arlington, maybe inside a windowsill not yet built, a child cups a seed, spits once, presses it into darkness, and waits. The waiting is short. The waiting is forever. The waiting ends with the same soft rupture that began every republic, every empire, Every dinner, every grave. A sound like a paper envelope tearing. A sound like truth, deciding it is finally hungry enough to grow. And the seed, older than entropy, younger than tomorrow, simply does what it has always done. It does not ask permission. It does not wait for the broadcast to end. It splits, sends root, and begins again, the only revolution that ever needed no translation, no nation, no name other than the one syllable every starving heart already knows by heart. Oh.